Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy David the Speaker, and yes, we're back again, yet again, for another episode of Dreamcast. Now, this episode is opening up just a little bit different because I want to give you a brief disclosure. This episode is impactful, it's powerful, it's inspiring, it's motivational, but it's deeply rooted in my faith and my guest's faith. And frankly, we just want to give you guys a little heads up. Now, most of my audience are believers of the same thing that I believe. But if this is not your cup of tea, I kindly ask you just to skip over the episode. I won't tolerate anything attacking what we believe. So if this is not the episode for you, just kindly skip over it. If you don't mind and you want to continue to listen, please by all means do so. And I hope that you enjoy this powerful message and this powerful episode on our podcast. Yo, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamcast. I'm your host, David the Speaker, and I'm so glad that you have joined me yet again for another episode. Today is a very, very special episode because, like I promised, I delivered. I have a special guest with me today, and he's going to be talking about overcoming adversity. This is a new segment that we're going to be introducing into my podcast where we have our special guests come and they talk about some of the adversities that they have faced in their life, some of the stories that they faced in their life, and how they overcame them. And we're going to use those stories to motivate you and encourage you and hopefully put a little fire under your butt so you can get moving and do what you need to do. With that being said, I'm going to introduce my friend, my brother, Mr. Kerwin Webb.
Hey,
Welcome,
what's up, my
Kerwin.
guy?
Welcome. Thank you for joining me once again, I say once again, but we've talked many times before outside of this. So thank you for joining me on the podcast. Before we get started, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
My name is Kerwin Webb. I am an ordained Baptist minister. I am a domestic missionary with the American Baptist Home Mission Society. Um, I'm pastoring here at Martin Luther King Presbyterian Church in Neptune, and I am just a lifelong servant. I'm initially from Alabama, born and raised, and lived in a couple of different places, Georgia, Texas. Now I'm here in New Jersey, and yeah, I'm just a servant, my friend, and really excited about what you're doing here. So I'm happy to join you.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you. And I forgot you became the pastor over there, man. That's great. I forgot. So this is
See,
one of my huh?
no, I was gonna say it's still like shocking to me also. So I don't broadcast it like some pastors are like, yeah, I'm a pastor over here, come to my church. It's just like, really, God, you chose me for this?
Yeah.
It's like one of those.
I forgot about that. Congratulations again. That's an
Thank
amazing
you, thank
thing.
you.
But yes, this is my friend and my brother. He is truly a servant. I mean, if y'all get to know this guy, like he's one of my brothers here in Jersey. If y'all get to know this guy, he's all over the place. He's doing multiple things. He's always indulged in something, and it's usually helping out somebody else. He's like, what can I do to bring forth the better you? What can I do to encourage what you're doing? What can I do to build what you're doing? So he's just an amazing guy, and I'm just excited to have him here on my podcast. So, with all that being said, we got our formalities out the way. We got everything dealt with. We all know who Mr. Kerwin Webb is. Let's get right into what we're going to be talking about. And this is called overcoming adversity.
Yeah,
Overcoming adversity. Um, and we're going to talk about this in a way of Mr. Kerwin, Mr. Webb, to tell us a story of what he's dealt with in his life and how he overcame it. So, Kerwin, can you tell me a story or a time that you faced a major adversity in your life? Tell us what that adversity was and then begin to tell us how you overcame that.
All right, cool. Um, so when you first asked me about it, there was one situation that I thought about telling, and that has to deal with my mom. But I think, if I may, it would be more complete if I gave you three stories of adversity, really quick ones
That's fun.
that, yeah, because they all are intertwined and they all are connected, and I believe sincerely that all of them led me here to this place, um, to where I can do the things that I'm doing, where I'm going around helping people. I'll
Okay.
go back. This was 2008. I started 2008, so 15 years ago. Um, I'm living in Georgia at the time. One of my brothers, I have two older brothers. One of my brothers was in Florida at the time. The other was in Alabama. My mom was in Alabama. Those things. And my mom got sick. Mother's Day
Mm.
2008. She got sick. Went to the hospital. My brother called and was like, "Hey, mom's in the hospital. You got to get here." So 2 hours, 2.5 hours from where I was in Georgia to home. And so I got there. And I remember joking with my mom, like, if you just wanted all of us, like me and my two brothers, if you just wanted us to be around you for Mother's Day, you could have said that. Like, you ain't have to come to the hospital to get us to come together. Um, because I'm thinking it's something simple, something slight, she'll be in there for a day or two and then come home. And the truth of it is, between May and November of 2008, my mom came out of the hospital one time, and it
Mm.
was just for like 2 days.
Mm.
So most of 2008, my mom was in the hospital sick and just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And there was some point along the way that, I really had to consider, like, wow, something is really serious if she's been in here months and months and months. And long story short, she ended up passing away.
Mm.
And the biggest test of adversity was, like, I'm the baby of the family, so I was the closest one. If you ask my brothers, they would say that I was spoiled and my mom loved me more. And I don't think that it's that she loved me more. I think it was just I think parents become more attached to their youngest ones because, like, this is the last child or whatnot.
Right, right,
But
right.
whatever that reason was, um, I remember thinking, if something happens to my mom, I'm not gonna make it. This is just like I did not imagine. I could not imagine a world where my mom was not there. And one of these days, I'm sitting in a room with her. She's on the bed, and we're talking, and she starts telling me similar conversation she told my other two brothers about the life insurance policies that she had, what needed to be done, all of those things in the event that she didn't make it. And I was like, "Ah, stop that! You're not going anywhere, so I don't even want to hear about that."
Mm.
And then I said to her, like, when you go, I'm gonna jump in with you. So this is irrelevant to me. I'm not gonna need any of this. And she sat up, looked me straight in my face, and she was like, "No, you're gonna continue living your life and you're gonna love it."
Mm.
And so, I took that as a sign that, like, she was like, "This is not a plague matter. These are the things that you need to do." And I thought, really, when she passed, that I really would be a mess. Um, And so when it finally happened, my brothers and I, we were together at the hospital, and she drifted into her eternal rest.
Mm.
And there was this calm that came over us. We had our emotional moments and things, but nothing like the breakdown that I thought would happen. Um, and so that there in November of 2008 was what I say was the beginning of the change in my life. I had built my life on three things. Like, there were three things that were really significant and important in my life that motivated me and that gave me strength and energy. And that was the relationship that I was in at that point, which I had been in. I had been with her for like 4 years at that point.
Okay.
My mom, and then the job that I had. And so I had been with the job for 2 or 3 years. And so, like, these were my stability places, my relationship, my job, and my mom. Like, if
It's like your
everything,
pillar.
yes, yep.
Yeah.
I call them the three-legged stools. These are the pillars of my three-legged stool: my mom, my
Mm.
relationship, my job. And my mom was the first one of those pillars to fall. The next one was the relationship a few years later, and then
Mm.
the job a few years later.
Mm.
And all of that, I say, I faced loss. Like, I had built up. things, connections, security, comfort in my mom, in the relationship, in the job. Like they were all familiar. And then as they started being pulled away, I was like, God, what is this? Like why is this happening? What are these things? And what I came to is that I had begun to make idols out of my job, my relationship, and my mom.
Wow.
They those things had become my safety, they had become my comfort, they had become my rock as
Mm,
opposed to God, right?
mm,
And so I recognize, okay, so maybe God is like pulling these things away just to see, really, am I going to fall away with those things or am I
mm,
going to cling closer? And so the overcoming the adversity was recognizing that there are people in your life that you will love, there are people in your life that you will want to go with you, but ultimately, God prepares you in advance for being able to go beyond because everybody can't go with you to where God is trying to take you. And if those
mm.
people are truly meant for you in your life during the season that you have with them, they're building you up so that you can deal with what comes after. And so, um, the way that I faced it was I turned inward and I said, okay, God, I trust you.
Mhm,
I trust you and I want to understand what is it that you are saying to me? What is it you're attempting to say to me through this so that I can become who you want me to be? And so now looking back 15 years later in those moments, I see that that adversity was actually shaping me so that in the time where I would need to comfort someone who is grieving, I understand grief and
mm,
loss,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I rationalized and said, all right, God allows us to go through things so that we then can help walk with someone else when they're going through their season of it. And that's how I view all that adversity. Like it's necessary. It sharpens us. It shapes us. Um, Difficult and painful, absolutely. Yet at the same time, if we persevere, there is life on the other side. New life, actually.
So that's very interesting, man. Thank you for sharing your story. I believe that is very interesting thing because here's the deal. Uh, whether you believe in our same the same God that we believe in or not, uh, um, there was a key factor that played into you overcoming the adversity. And that was relying on God, trusting God. And so there's two things I want to pull from that. First, we're going to kind of like rewind. The first thing I want to pull from that is uh, in that moment where you were feeling lost, like can you go in detail on exactly what that made you feel? Because I want people to begin to relate with you in that moment because I think we're in a time where people experience a lot of loss. They're experiencing a lot of grief. Uh, Things are just shifting and changing in their lives that it's almost all of a sudden. I mean, the last 4 years, if we recall, have been insane. It just kind of like knocked everybody off of their feet. With dealing with the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and then just everything that followed after that. We've been in a weird time in our country, and then around the world, everything that's going on around the world. So if you can give a little bit more in depth of the details about how you felt in those moments, and before you decided to make the decision to trust God, because we're going to get there. But before you decided to make the decision to trust God, can you talk about a little bit what you were feeling on the inside, what you were dealing with? Because I think people need to relate to that and
Yeah.
understand that before you, like, you said, I'm going to make the decision to trust God.
Yeah. So I'd say in that during that entire time period, let's call it May to October, it was confusion really because my mom, who had some health challenges, but she was doing what she needed to do, taking medicines, those types of things. And then this thing happened and it was, I don't know, unexpected. So I was confused as to what's happening because initially it was like, oh, it's a simple infection. And so we'll give her some antibiotics and she should be fine.
Hmm.
And then the time that they said it should be done, it's like she's still in the hospital and it's something different that they don't know. And so there was frustration. there was anger.
Mm,
Um, I was detaching from the people and the things that in normal times would bring me joy and excitement, right?
right.
I was in the relationship and we were still together, but I was somewhat detached. Like I didn't want to hear, I didn't want to talk to you. I wanted to like somehow use all of my willpower to make my mom better. Um, it was, and then as she deteriorated and it got worse and worse, um, I it's probably safe to say that I went through some sort of depression, right?
Yeah, that
Um,
would be ideal. Yeah.
and I masked it by working. So like if
Mm.
I'm at work, I have to perform. I have to be on. So this character comes over me to where I can suppress my emotions. I can put them out and not deal with it, not think about it.
So let's pause right there for a second because it was beautiful that you went there. So I want our audience to understand, and I want the people to understand that overcoming it is not suppressing.
Right, right.
Overcoming is not suppressing. It may feel like you're overcoming, it may feel like you're trying to get over it, it may feel like that you're trying to take your mind off of it, but it's only suppressing because we have to understand if we suppress it, it's going to come back later.
Yep, yep,
Or we're going to
yep.
suppress it so much that it's just going to cause us to explode. It's going to cause us to snap. So he said something very, very key here. He said he was using work to kind of take his mind off of everything that was going on in his life because like you said, he was detaching himself. He was experiencing confusion, frustration, anger of everything that was going on. So he decided to try to suppress, and suppressing is not the best answer. Can you talk a little bit more about what was happening when you were suppressing everything with work?
Yeah, I ended up pushing myself towards burnout. It was those. So here's what I'm realizing, and I am still undoing some of the damage that perhaps was done then by facing my stuff now. But then it was, I don't want to not be busy. If I am not busy, then I have to think about how I feel. I have to think
Yeah,
about what I
yeah,
know. And so if I'm at work, if I'm picking up this extra shift, if after work now I'm going out with my friends so that we're, you know, at a bar or we're just hanging out or whatever, it's stuff that's taking my mind away from the pain. Yet what happens is at some point you're going to have to sit with it and
right,
you're going to have to
right,
recognize what's happening and why. Um, it also helps to be able, and at this point back then I was not yet able as well as I am now to articulate what's going on. Like there
yeah,
are times where I detach or need space right now, and I'll have a friend that reaches out to me and say, "Hey, do you want to do something?" And I can easily say, "No, I'd rather be alone right now,"
right,
because I am able now to identify the feelings that I have, and I know that during certain times, um, certain people will not bring out the best in me. And so, me suppressing my feelings and emotions, I was putting on this happy smile, this pretending face, but then when people were around and they'd say something that, you know, it triggered me that wouldn't normally trigger me,
right,
and
right,
I'd go off and people are looking at me like, "What? Wait, what was that?" It was really
right,
those suppressed emotions that somebody
right,
had triggered something that I hadn't dealt with, and now I'm risking harming this friendship or relationship. And so it seems easier to just put it out of your mind. There's nobody that'll understand. Like those are wrong thoughts. Those are thoughts that are birthed in trauma
right.
that somebody will understand, and not talking about it. I understand that you can't talk about everything with everyone, but everyone needs someone that they can talk to, someone that will listen to them,
Yeah.
because those things, it's like steam. If you keep it in, at some point it's gonna erupt.
Yeah, that is key information. I actually did a episode on that in the first season. Was called "You're Not Alone." Realizing that you need someone to talk to, realizing that you need somebody to bounce what you're feeling off of, realizing
Yep.
that you need people around you. You can't handle life's issues without yourself. Okay, so we were talking about God a little bit earlier. God created man, and He said it's not good for man to be alone. He said it's not good for man to be alone. It
Now,
was
is
Him.
that just in the context of marriage, or is that in
I
general?
know that's in general. That is relationships in totality. It is not good for man to be alone. If that, if that was, if it wasn't the case, God wouldn't have to create another person for him. It could have been just him and God. And people say, well, I talk to God and that's enough. Well, that's even God didn't make that up as the design. He wanted people to be next to you and near you that you can relate to and be with. Because as much as talking to God is great and wonderful, God is way up here, somewhere up, way up there, and we're way down here. And I know God can sympathize and understand us, but again, He's way up here somewhere, and we're way down here. So it is never good for man to be alone. So that is a key thing that you said, and I'm glad you said it because uh, we can't run to suppressing our feelings. We just can't. We can't run to that. It's too much turmoil, and it's too much of a headache for you and the people who are surrounding you to deal with. And it's funny because I preached yesterday at a church, and that was a portion of my message,
Oh,
suppressing.
wow.
So it's so crazy. Well, y'all, I said yesterday, when y'all see this recording, it's going to be kind of a couple of weeks from now. So uh, understand that we're going to be almost around Christmas by the time this comes out. So anyway, that's a key factor. And I'm glad you said it. Now we're going to jump over to the second portion of the question that I had for you. Uh, when you made the decision to trust God, what did that look like? Because uh, we hear that a lot. And again, this is whether you believe in our God or not, because um, and I think it really applies to multiple areas because some people are like, well, just trust your instinct or just trust, like if they don't believe in God, they'll like trust your instinct, trust what you already have, trust the people around you, whatever. You have to end up trusting in something, or they tell you to trust in your God, whatever you serve. But talk about that for a minute, for a second. What does that look like? Because we hear that terminology, but I
Yep.
don't think people necessarily knows what that look like. What that looks like. What how do you trust God? Like what I you because it's more than just a belief. There's an action to that. So
Yeah.
can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so for me, in those moments, in that moment where I lost my mom, the relationship was happening, and then I lost my job, it was more. I keep going back to my mom because it was more. Um, I was newer into my faith walk with that one. By the time
Okay.
the relationship ended, I had already been walking with God, sort of, kind of doing this dance where it's like, um, all right, God, I understand what people have told me about you. I understand what the writers have in the Bible. But when my mom died and when she was sick and then died, my trusting God looked like a dare. It was like, okay, so apparently you're this all-loving God that you're able to heal all of these. Okay, do it, prove it, right?
Mm,
It wasn't a, hey God, I love you, thank you for doing all of these things. It was more of a, okay, let me actually see if you are real so that I can make a decision whether I want to follow you or not. Like,
mm,
honestly, that was
wow.
that was my trust walk. It's like I'm doubting you in some ways, but I haven't really got out of the boat to really see if you're going to let me sink. This situation, you taking my rock away from me, the person who brought me into the world, the person who raised me, the person who I know loves me unconditionally, you took that away from me. So now
Mm,
let me see if you can fill that void. That's
mm,
sort of what my trusting God looked like. And as I slowly began to step out and trust on faith, I really started to recognize and understand how God speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, a key in trusting God is like you have to understand how God speaks to you because God may not speak to you the same way that God speaks to me.
Mm.
These are some of the multiple different ways I've heard God speak to me. Strangers, right? Just in walking up to me in the grocery store and them saying something, they've answered a question, a prayer that I had of God
Right.
directly, and they
Right.
have no idea what they were doing.
Right.
Um, Friends of mine, and they'll just out of the blue, like I don't know what came over me, but something just told me to call you. And it was a moment where I was like going through like despair, like nobody cares about me. If I don't even reach out to them, they don't reach out to me. But then a phone call comes through, and so like here, understanding like those people say trust your instincts. Okay, sometimes, most times, those instincts, that's God that's speaking to you in a way to where we don't have the vocabulary to name it as God. And so we say the instinct.
Instincts. Right. Yep.
And so it once I started recognizing, all right, this little nudge that I have, this little thing that says, all right, do this, it's not something that I would want to do, but it sounds like something God would have me to do. And then I would start doing those things. Um, the biggest So that was my beginning with my mom. I was like daring God, all right, prove yourself to me in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big faith walk came after I lost my job. Um, I took, I recognized that it was God because in between the time where I lost my mom and I lost my job, uh, I did some self evaluation and I understood that the three legged stool, my mom, the relationship, and the job, and I thought, okay, maybe God is trying to tear these idols away from me so that I can be purely like obedient. And so I
Mm.
was prepared for them to fall away. And so when the job fell away, the last one, I said, okay, God, I know this is you. Like the confident, I know this is you, not I'm daring you to show up. I know this is you. I have no idea what you're doing, but I'm going to trust you to work this out.
Mm.
And that ultimately was what led me to come to New Jersey. Um, Leaving all of my family. I've never been to New Jersey, never thought about coming to New Jersey, but that was, I heard God saying to me, this is where I want you to go for your next season. And I was terrified and I was scared and I tried to back out. And then God spoke a different way and said, wherever I send you, I've already granted you the provision. And so all of the excuses that I had, they went away. And it's like, okay, all right, so let me learn more about this God because I'm about to put my life in this God's hand.
So again, that is so good. And this just has been turning into this episode has been just really it's been a powerful episode and faith based, and I'm loving it. I'm gonna have to give a disclosure in the beginning of this episode. Just let people know, like, listen, if you're not ready for a faith based motivational episode, then you probably shouldn't tune into this one. Skip over it. But anyway, with that being said, you said some very powerful things here, and trusting God and what that looks like. But the one thing that I want to pull away from that, and one thing I want to extract from that is when you're overcoming adversity, audience, you must understand when you're overcoming adversity, uh, sometimes it it doesn't feel great, and sometimes it's going to push you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it's going to take you in a place you've never been before. This is very interesting because um, if you read your Bibles and if you believe in the same God that we believe, and I'm hoping that if you're tuning in to this, if you're tuning in thus far, we've been on here about 30 minutes almost. So if you've been tuning in so far, I believe that you believe in the same God that we believe in. So if you read your Bibles and you understand uh, God and what he does, you will see that this is not really anything that's not new. He's been doing it all through the Old Testament
Yep.
and and even in the New Testament, but you can really see it in the stories of the Old Testament. One God I'm reminded of specifically is Abraham. God told Abraham to up and just get up and just
Yep.
go I think he told him that at least 2 or 3 times, where he just told him to get up and just go, and he was like, "I'm going to show you where to kind of like settle." And between him and his family, they had to get up and go and leave, get up and go and leave. A couple of times, but sometimes that's what overcoming adversity looks like. People, it requires you to go to a place you've never been before, and it makes you very uncomfortable. It makes you uh, um, it makes you feel that you don't necessarily feel stable. I can only imagine what Kerwin, what you felt when you decided to come to Jersey. Like you said, you you left all your family. You don't know nobody here. You don't even know that. I'm not even sure if you understood the full layout of Jersey, where you want to. Because listen, Jersey looks small, y'all, on a map, but it's kind of big. It's kind of, there's different dynamics of Jersey.
Yeah,
Jersey has cities. Jersey has farms. Jersey has suburbs. Jersey has country. Like it's
yeah,
a multi facet and dynamic of layout of land. So for him to even come to Jersey and then to decide where he's going to come at, that's a big thing, and that can be very uncomfortable. But it was a part of overcoming the adversity. Sometimes new scenery opens you up a little bit. It helps you release those things that are going on the inside of you. So I'm so glad that you shared that, Kerwin. Is there anything you wanted to add?
yeah. Let me modify something that you said. You said sometimes adversity takes us beyond our comfort zone. Sometimes adversity is uncomfortable. I would say all of the time, and I think that's the necessary point of it. Is that people do not grow where they're comfortable,
Right.
right? People do not grow where they're comfortable, and God constantly calls people to higher heights and deeper depths. And so being disrupted is not a bad thing if you are a person who likes growth.
Right.
Unfortunately, our culture, our society, you buy comfort. You pay for things to be comfortable, right? I'm going to
Right.
DoorDash because I don't want to go and pick
I
up my
don't feel like
fast food,
leaving.
right? And so when people are doing that, they're missing the growth opportunity that then turns into sometimes the best blessing of their lives. Me coming here, not my plan, was not something I wanted to do. I tried to back out of it. As a matter of fact, when I got here, my whole focus was like, all right, I'm ready to go back home. And had that happened, I would have missed all of the things that I am doing now, which really, and my friends probably are sick of me saying this, is like the work that I do is the work that I dreamed about doing when I was a kid. It
Mm,
was like, if I could do anything in the world and get paid for it, I would go around helping people.
mm,
And because I want to say the adversity of me losing those things I was close to and then me leaning more into God, I am
mm,
actually doing the thing that when I was a 9-year old kid laying in my bed, like, what do I want to do? I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a lawyer or a firefighter. I just wanted to travel and help people. And now God has allowed me to do that because I wasn't afraid of dealing with the adversity. I wasn't afraid of dealing with my feelings and emotions. And learning how to overcome those deficits that I had, both mentally and emotionally, and even spiritually. Right? There's
mm,
work that adversity teaches us that we have to do, and some people don't like adversity because they don't like to do the work. But on the other side of the work is really a rebirth
right.
and a clarity that allows you to be just like live on purpose in a way that is meaningful.
It's again, this is crazy because I preached on that yesterday too. I had to preach in two different places yesterday, and that was the second one. That
Full disclosure, I did not hear him preach at all yesterday. This is just
nope,
God
nope,
aligning.
yep. So that is crazy, man. That's crazy. I'm just a little bit in awe. I'm still in awe of yesterday because yesterday was just amazing. But yeah, that again, when y'all see this, it wasn't yesterday to y'all, but it was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, man. I'm just so glad to have Kerwin on with us today. I think today was a really, really powerful episode. We really got the chance to hear a very difficult time um, that Kerwin went through. We heard a story where his stool, he said his three-pillared stool, in a sense, where each of those things were taken away one by one, and it really kind of rocks you. And I think, like I said, a lot of us have experienced similar things in our lives where things have been taken away from us, or things were very difficult for us, and uh, it just kind of rocks us. And you got to choose what you're going to do next when that happens. So I think it's a beautiful thing that he chose God, and God helped him get through it. And it's just an amazing thing, and it's a beautiful story. It's not comfortable, it's not a good feeling, but when you come out of it, it's a great
Mhm.
story to tell. And overall, it makes you a little bit more prepared to deal with other people, because that's one of the reasons why we go through things in our lives. It's one of the reasons why we go through adversity in our lives, so we can be able to help and comfort others. So, I just thank Kerwin for joining us here on Dreamcast. This is a motivational podcast, but man, he turned to faith based real quick, and I have no problem with that. We I already told my followers, I told people who listen to me, I'm like, y'all know me. I am a faith based man, and sometimes, we just gonna have to go there. But my wife has been telling me that she was like, you need to start another podcast. You need to start a faith based podcast. She was like, you do very well in that, and now I'm thinking about it. Uh, I was like, yeah, yeah. She was like, she was like, you need to start a faith podcast. And, she's like, we need to share our conversations because we have good conversations.
Mm.
But, it makes me want to think about it even more because, I have such some powerful people around me like Kerwin, that can give some great insight on our faith, and hopefully can help and encourage people in our faith. So, again, thank you for such a motivational, such an empowering, inspiring, just being with us today, man. It was truly a pleasure to have you on. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna close our podcast out. And we'll see you next time on our next episode. So until next time, peace and love. We
Yes.
are out.